What?
Gentlemen, start your engines. That's what I'm talking about. We are the world. We are the children, and we eat kosher. We eat kosher granola bars. Well, we don't, but Logan does. He's very much an ascetic Jew. If you didn't know it, he's got the curls that hang down. Actually, he's bald, but he wears a hat that has the curls that hang down.
You figure out which is true.
But you figure it out because he really is Jewish. He is from the tribe of Benjamin, from the lineage of Saul. Saul was actually like his great-grandfather.
I could take it. Whereabouts.
Really.
They stopped tracking it after Chronicles.
They quit, and then all of a sudden there was Logan. And Logan does eat bacon. He eats unclean animals.
And is he really a Hasidic Jew?
Yes.
How does that work exactly?
Something just doesn't sound right.
My question is,
he's got Jewish
going
hair.
back to the very beginning, are the ladies not allowed to start their engines?
Oh, sorry. Ladies, start your engines.
There you go.
But it's he can eat it because God called everything clean in the Acts, and he said, well, I believe in God, and
And what goes in is what comes out.
yeah, what goes in a man does not defile a man. It's what comes out of his heart. I don't know who said that, but I think it was that Jesus guy. You know what I'm saying?
I was thinking
Hello.
of Elton John.
I think we need to start off with like a random question every morning.
It's the most bonkers starting we've ever
Do you remember the candy bonkers? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yes. At least some people picked that up. High five?
I wasn't
I'm
going
hurt.
to. I don't think they knew that.
I don't think you were. We are the children.
Is that the Bob Dylan version? We are the world.
That's a very good Bob Dylan impression. I felt
Well,
like I was right.
Do you know why we meet?
It's actually
No, it's not.
We meet for two reasons. Actually, there's probably more than
because
two
we
reasons.
don't have any other friends.
Yeah, we probably meet for more than two reasons, but I'd just like to bring two out. It's about the community and fellowship, but it's also about the PSL 10. And the PSL 10 is still around. Actually, one of us is drinking the PSL 10. No, he drank the PSL 10, and now he's off to the bathroom because it ran through him like coffee.
Runs through a human body.
Just like it goes through.
Like a
It
cheetah.
it like skipped his gallbladder and everything. Digestive system, the whole shebang.
I came into Owensboro for this.
And welcome to Coffee Talk. We're so glad that you joined us.
First 10 minutes.
This morning, we figured we would lighten the mood a little bit because when you get in the book of Zechariah, it's nothing but death and destruction and wrath. And it's like singing Pour Some Sugar on Me, but it's like Pour Some Blood on Me or something like that. You know? It has nothing to do with anything like that.
Slaughter a pig. And
Slaughter pigs, goats, sheep, birds, sacrifices, Jesus,
Paul's like, now I remember why I stopped coming.
prophecy. And now we're getting into the book of Zechariah, so thanks for coming. Take two. Welcome to Coffee Talk. We're so glad that you joined us this morning.
We are the world. We are the children.
All right, let's get into the book of Zechariah.
All 80 chapters.
I think there's only like
14, but
14, but
who's
hey,
counting?
you know.
Who's counting?
exactly, I'm not counting.
That's because you didn't read it.
So sweet.
Did you even know the Bible had the book of Zechariah?
I had to find it.
He thought it was Zacchaeus.
Oh.
We had to explain to him that Zacchaeus was in the New Testament.
I almost went to Zephaniah first, though.
All right. Well, it starts off very friendly.
In the 8th month, in the second
night
year of
vision.
Darius.
Yeah.
Which means this is before Xerxes, for those of you who are keeping up with your history at home.
Yeah, but the Lord was extremely angry with your ancestors.
Yeah.
We don't have Parvin here to put that in layman's terms. He was a little ticked off.
God was pretty ticked off.
And for the next 3 minutes, Logan is going to do a poetry reading of the visions of Zechariah.
the Def Jam poetry reading.
I need to light up first.
Can you say that?
Smoke incense straight. Several of these visions make no sense. But
I wonder if they even made sense to Zechariah.
Do they have myrtle trees at Myrtle Beach?
Yeah, they do. I think 114 explains a whole lot about what's going on. The angel who was speaking with me said, proclaim, the Lord of hosts says, I am extremely jealous for Jerusalem and Zion. Which, let's face it, it's no different today. I think God is still very much a jealous God. As they went after these false idols, I mean, we go after the same concept, except it's just not in a raised pole statue form. It's more in like a phone or a car or a job or a lot of different things. But then he says, I am fiercely angry. Not that he is just angry, but he's fiercely angry with the nations that are at ease. For I was a little angry, but they made it worse. That's not a good thing. I wonder how often we make it worse. Does God still get as fiercely angry with us as he did then? Now that's a question to ponder.
I'd say because God is unchanging, that yeah, he probably does.
There's something that I'm thinking that's completely kind of on topic but off topic at the same time. Like, God was so ticked off with the human race when Noah was around that he just destroyed the entire human race pretty much, except for Noah and his family. If he had, I mean, like, were those people worse than we are, or I mean, like, was it worth destroying everyone because is everyone like, are we just as bad as they were?
That's a good point.
And that's kind of, he talks about how fiercely angry he is. I mean, if we continue to make him angry.
Well, it talks about how
We know he's not gonna do it
wickedness
again.
was rampant then.
Right.
What
It's
would
not
be
now.
defined? What would no? I'm saying what would be defined as wickedness then? You know, is that just direct rebellion against God? Because if that's what wickedness is, then obviously he is as angry.
Right.
you had,
As
you
it
know,
was
like
then.
the Nephilim and all that stuff, the angel
Right.
mating with people or whatever, and all the craziness going on. That just sounds infinitely worse than what we got going on now. It sounds like an episode
Right.
of Buffy the
But I'm not,
Vampire
I'm just sitting here thinking, like, because we're reading, and he's like, how often do we read that he was fiercely angry with the human race? Just like, was it, not to question God's plan or anything, but what was it really worth destroying the group that was already around just to get a group that's just as wicked, just as evil? I don't know. Just thought.
You know, a lot of people say I don't believe in a God who is love, but a God who is also wrath. But aren't we the same type of people, though? If we are truly created in His image, how can we be loving one second and wrathful the next? You know what I'm saying? I mean, how many of us have been wrathful with our kids? So, I mean, Dustin does, and his kid's like 1. I'm just kidding.
1 in 3 months, all right?
Okay.
All right, once that
I'm
third
just
month
kidding.
hit, he deserves
But
it.
how many of us get wrathful with people just in general? I mean, we just get upset, but yet we still have love within us.
But on the whole, people as a whole are going to say, I want to believe in a God that's better than me. Wrath is going to come across as failure on the human side.
That's true.
You're not going
On our finite mind, yeah.
So they want to think of, if there's God, he's going to be better than I am. And if I'm getting wrathful, usually if I'm getting wrathful, it's probably bad on my behalf because I don't have holy
Right.
wrath or whatever.
Yeah, but our wrath is typically exposed at the most, like, ridiculous things.
Yeah.
Like, there's really no, for the most part, our wrath is not truly justified. Our wrath is just us being stupid most of the time.
Yeah.
Whereas God's wrath comes from us being stupid.
Well, a lot of times, people will either what you call it, judging God, or whether God is there, or whether there's this God of the Bible, is they'll judge it on just the limit, basically the limited knowledge that they know or that we even know. And so they'll box him in and say, the only thing that I've read is 3 prophets of the Old Testament. And that doesn't sound like a loving God. You know, why would God do stuff like that? But if you got to put the whole picture together. And the whole picture together is extreme love. Because every time he's got a plan along the way that's going to show his love even greater than what it was before.
Well, even built into his wrath and here is the hope of the Messiah.
Right.
And I was reading my illustrated pocket handbook, and it said that this book of the Bible is the most quoted in the New Testament.
Yep.
And it's odd, I think, that in all that wrath is still God's love showing through.
I mean, if you think of what Will says, when we get wrathful with our kids, I don't think we truly get wrathful.
No, I'm not saying like in the wrath, like we're going to like destroy everything.
No, but but I mean, like when we get wrathful with our kids, I mean, there's love behind that. It's more. It's not like I hate this kid. I just want to be
Right.
about it. It's more of I need to teach this kid not to do this, so that they understand that in the future you can't do that.
It is does God's wrath equate to discipline? You know? Because a lot of times his wrath, well, obviously not in the time of Noah. That was just straight up destruction, like Sodom and Gomorrah. But
That'll teach him.
I mean, that's discipline.
yeah,
Ultimately, that is discipline. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, they had warnings. There's no way they didn't have warnings.
I'm sure Noah told his family, like, don't make God mad.
So I think to go back to the whole question that you asked, is God yet just as angry today? No, because of what Paul's talking about, because of Jesus coming. I think God now looks at Christ's blood and said, our wickedness, and doesn't see that. He probably gets confident in his son's forgiveness. His wrath was poured out on Jesus.
true that. There you go. Look at Logan, the theologian.
The Jew coming out of it.
Yeah, that's the Jewishness coming out in you.
In the next documentary about the Torah, they interview Logan.
He's actually on that History Channel series, The Bible.
No, they're doing one for the Jewish people. It's called the Torah.
The Torah.
And it stars Logan.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Exactly what Paul was talking about, but thinking about like being angry and how things are going on today is if you go over to chapter 7 in verse 8 or verse 9, the Lord is saying this to Zechariah, and it says, "Render true justice, show faithful love and compassion to one another." So what's, that's the exact message of Jesus right there. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the stranger or the poor. Do not plot evil in your hearts against one another. But they refused to pay attention and turned a stubborn shoulder. They closed their ears so that they could not hear. They made their hearts like a rock so as not to obey the law or the words that the Lord of hosts had sent by his Spirit through the earlier prophets. Therefore great anger came from the Lord. And I think that's the gospel message in its entirety right there. That's exactly what Jesus came to do. It's basically love God, love people, show compassion, be kind to one another, bear one another's burdens, and so often I think we miss that. And if we're missing it, are we turning? Are we refusing to pay attention? And are we turning a stubborn shoulder? Are we closing our ears so that we cannot hear? So, the crowd falls silent.
It's because Parvin just walked in.
Cornerstone will come from Judah.
We're all in awe of Parvin.
Yeah, Parvin walks in.
How dapper he looks today.
I'm no engineer, but
Logan is.
it took them 75 years to build that wall.
It's a big city, isn't
You
it?
engineers,
They might not have had simple machines back then.
The pyramid is supposed to be square.
yeah. No, I mean, that's going to be the focus of your existence, basically. That wall is protection, and right now they didn't have anything to fear then because they got the blessing of the people who were in control of that area, but that could change in any minute. And I mean, that's their livelihood, and yet it took them 75 years and the prophets the whole time saying, we got to build this wall, and yet they were refusing to do it.
Yeah.
But God led you out of bondage, and all He wants you to do is build this wall and rebuild Jerusalem, and it took Him that long to do it. Again, I'm no engineer, but you think they would have a little bit more.
I don't think they were committed to the work that needed to be done.
Nehemiah was, right? How long did it take them? 52 days?
Yeah.
That's right. I knew the answer. I was just asking the question.
Because they said,
Is it a rhetorical question?
yeah, they've talked a couple places in this book about getting people to come help you build up the stuff. It makes me think that they're too busy outliving the lifestyle God does not like. They want to go out and party all night under the neon lights. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. That's what's keeping them safe. Is that you would think, why don't you take care of yourself first?
Yeah. It's kind of like being in a battle and being like, we'll set up the trenches later. Be all right. Don't need those trenches.
They were just.
Maybe they thought if they prayed long enough that God would build the wall for them, and kind of like Christians do today. Like
Maybe they had the
pray
Air
so
Force.
much.
They had the Air Force to come in from an air attack. So they didn't need the wall.
That's true. I mean, we do. We pray so much, and we just expect God to move, so we'll just sit there until He moves.
God, I'm going to sit here and pray until you build the wall for me. That's how it works, isn't it, Parker? That's how it works.
There's just a whole, let's just face it, there's a whole lack of application across the entire Christian world today. So it's no different in Zechariah's time. There was a whole time of no application. God was speaking through Zechariah, and they just sat there like glazed look in their eyes and like, I don't know what's going on, and moseying around, taking 70 years to build a wall, or it's almost as if they were wandering in the wilderness just like they were before. And what's any different today? Are we really just sitting there wandering in the wilderness and just moseying around, praying, God, I wish you'd move. God, I wish you'd do this. I'm waiting for you to do something great in our nation, and I'm going to sit here and wait until you do something.
Do you think they were waiting for the Messiah?
I don't know. I don't think they were.
They probably heard about the Messiah. At this point, how long have they been hearing about the Messiah?
Well, ever since the beginning of time. I mean, so it kept passing that
like,
generation.
Messiah.
I think of them as a bunch of drug addicts who don't realize they're hurting themselves by not taking care of themselves.
Right.
They're going out and addicted to the style they live. And, there probably is a remnant that's working on that wall, and it's slow because there's so little people doing whatever they need to be doing. And God talks about the idolatry and everything else, and how much it angers Him. And I just think most of these people, they've been oppressed forever. This is just the lifestyle they once lived.
He's about to go quiet here, isn't he?
Yeah.
A couple of years.
Really close.
Yeah, after Malachi, and still moving, but
Do you think they
not speaking.
kind of, again, still a little bit off? Do you think they really even noticed that he was quiet?
I would say there was a remnant of people who did, and they probably feared greatly for their lives, or at least.
But I would say the majority of people probably.
Okay, what's here's the deal. What's different today?
Right.
You know what we hear? They heard Messiah, 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 Messiah. They love the lifestyle. You know what we hear? Second coming, second coming, second coming, second coming. You know what we do about it? absolutely nothing. So how are we any different from Israel than today? Because we're just sitting back going,
We've never
well,
been different than Israel.
you know what? I'm just praying that Jesus come back before I die, and I just want to be raised up into heaven. People who are sitting there saying that are probably going to be sitting in the same place when Jesus comes back. I mean, let's face it.
You know, it's like I was telling you last night when I send these guys an email, they don't ever that
I'm a busy man.
The greatest form of rejection is silence. You know, and when you think about that, when he got quiet, what happens to us as humans when we feel rejected? All kinds of things start coming in, you know. You think about how children who don't have the right nurturing when they're growing up, and then you look back on their life and you can associate that time in their life as to how their behavior changed over time and how they acted out. It makes perfect sense. Because we are children of God. It's no different than how we live our life today.
I'll come down and give you a hug, Parvin.
Just answer my email.
I answer them from time to time.
From Will.
From time to time.
Calluses on my middle finger from typing.
Parvin's a little bitter. I'm sensing some wrath coming out and
You drink coffee.
some suppressed anger.
I apologize. Sorry.
But I mean, really, what's different? 80% of people who are self-proclaiming Christians are sitting back, living with zero urgency, just
Feeling rejected.
And I think it's even worse for us because we have seen God's love. You know, at least we have something to look back on. They are
Right.
only looking forward at what could be.
right.
We've already seen part of the miracle, and
We have hindsight.
Yeah.
I think we're finally, not finally, but like we're the piece of the puzzle that where the whole world comes together in everybody finally being able to go to heaven because they can believe in Jesus. You know, before it was like God's chosen people, and you had to do specific things to get into that group. Now, all you have to do, simplicity speaking, is accept Jesus and follow Jesus, you know, and where now we have a mission and we're not using that, you know, we talk about second coming or whatever, but when the second coming happens, is your neighbor going to be coming with you?
Are you even going to be going?
Yeah, are you even going to be going? And people are like, oh yeah, well I know I'm going to heaven. Well, is, you know, Ranger Joe coming with you that you've been talking to at your job for a year? Yeah, I love Ranger Joe too. So, I thought about Joe the plumber. Anyways. So
That's an old reference.
I think there's more of an urgency now to go out and live Christ's love than there ever was in biblical times.
Should be more of an urgency.
Should be. Well, yeah.
Yeah, but we also then use God as an excuse not to do it, not to be urgent, because we're like, well, things will work out in God's time.
Yeah.
No,
I think that's a lie.
You're supposed.
I mean, I think everything's going to work out for God's purpose, but I don't think that everything's going to be okay. It's not always going to be okay. And everybody always talks about, oh, things are going to be okay. No, they're not. It's as simple as that. Sorry, Debbie Downer this morning.
All right, gosh, I know. I just getting an espresso.
Somebody has not been to coffee talk in a while.
I had an espresso.
I think the urgency was when Jesus said, "You're not going to know when I'm coming back." I mean, that should have been the urgent right there. And I think we took that totally the wrong way. Like, oh, we got time then. You know?
Well, I think that they were urgent right away. Right off the bat, they were urgent. I mean, when you look at Acts, they were urgent.
yeah.
I mean, they were urgent. But I think as time's gone on, the more we've heard, well, he's coming back, he's coming back. The urgency is slowly died down. And like, yeah, they've been saying that for years. Of course.
Noah told the people it's going to flood for years too, right?
Yeah.
And they did not believe him.
It's just like your job. I mean, it starts off exciting and new, but it gets old.
Yeah.
Gets routine.
The church starts off exciting and new, and if you don't have revival or the Spirit refreshing you, it gets old.
how many generations of Messiahs coming have these people had? Messiah's coming.
Yeah.
And then it was, this generation was in exile. The generation before that, a couple of generations back, they were in exile. And then, sooner or later you're like, yeah, sure, the Messiah's coming. I can see him doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. If Abraham was somewhere around 10, 12,000 years prior to this, let's just say a generation is 100 years.
A lot.
It's a lot of people coming and going,
I
I mean,
mean, seeing a guy wearing the end is nice sign walking down the street. We're like, sure it is, buddy.
You're like billions of people over and over. This has been passed down for a long time. And it's the same thing now. I mean, Jesus came, and it's been how many years since he's come? 2,000, almost 2,000 years. And how many generations have passed, and we just sit back and do the same thing. We do the same thing, and I've met, I don't know how many people over the last week just talking with them who, very good chance, they're lost. And we always have to ask ourselves, are we pushing people toward Christ, or are we pushing people away from Christ? Because you're not doing anything in the middle. There is no middle ground there. It's one or the other. And if we're not pushing them toward Christ, and we're supposed to be living with urgency, then where does that rest with us? And Logan's right. It's not going to take a scheduled revival, okay? You're not going to schedule revival. Anybody that listens to this, you cannot schedule revival for your church, okay? I'm a little bitter about that, sorry. But the deal is
you can't force the Spirit.
You can't force the Spirit, but you have to always be constantly working out your salvation with fear and trembling. You have to constantly be pouring yourself out. I think Paul would. I don't know Paul's everyday life, but he's over there. But he said every day he poured himself out as a drink offering, to where he got to the end of the day, and I think he was so spiritually tired that he could do nothing but rest in Jesus Christ. And he knew that over the period of however many hours he was going to sleep that night, Jesus was going to refresh him enough that whatever he needed to do, he was going to pour himself as drink offering the next day. I think that's spiritual revival. I think that's personal revival all the time. Did it get monotonous for Paul? I'm sure it did. But, I mean, that's what it was about. He knew there was a mission greater than him. And I believe when we feel like, or we even come to the realization that we have a mission that is actually greater than us, then we will be vibrant. We will push for that vibrance all the time, or as much as possible. And I think the nation of Israel lost that. I think somewhere along the way, but they had glimpses of it. I mean, you had glimpses of it with David, a little bit with Solomon. You had some with Josiah, and some of these other kings who came through, and the prophets. But the nation as a whole lost their vibrance. And when the church as a whole loses their vibrance and their spiritual vitality, there's going to be many more in this world who are going to be dying and going to hell, because we've lost our mission, we've lost our focus, and we're off course.
You don't think that's already happened to an extent?
Yeah, probably to an extent, but I don't think it's... I don't know. I just don't think it's as... I don't think it's as big as it can be, or it could be, or going to be, however you want to phrase that. I mean, you're seeing a changeover in the church now that people are realizing that you're either growing or you're going to die. And the ones who are dying are kind of sitting back just saying, well, God said that the gates of hell will not prevail over the church, and they're just sitting back and doing nothing. And eventually, what's going to happen when your church completely dies off? Well, you're going to have to shut the doors. And I don't think the gates of hell is prevailing over the church as a whole. I think it's just prevailed over that one specific body. And we have to continue to pour ourselves out, and it's the mentality that we're going to have to get is that it's going to take everybody, every Christian, every self-proclaiming Christian in Owensboro needs to be discipled to go out and make disciples. Then you're going to win Owensboro. And then you need to do the same thing in every city, and then you're going to win the state of Kentucky. And then you're going to go out and you're going to win this. And then you're going to go out. But we've lost the idea that what we've taken is we're not going to go to you, you're going to come to us. You're going to come to us. And we're going to do everything we can to get to come to us. Think about it. Think about everything that any church does. Where do you hold your... Where's the Vacation Bible School kickoff at? At the church building. Where is the revival meetings happening? You come to the church. What basketball league do you want to be a part of? I want to be a part of it. You come to our church and be a part of this basketball league. Everything is you come, you come, you come. When Jesus preached the opposite message, you go, you go, you go, you go, you go, and you don't stop ever going. You just keep going all the time. And somehow we've lost the idea of going.
I think we've slowly lost the idea of personal communication. I mean, in an age of...
Hang on, I got a tweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Or reply back to Parvin.
Parvin's
Yeah,
like
let me reply back to-
amening over here. Parvin's amening.
Let me reply back to Parvin's
I'm sitting
email.
over in the bushes, I'm just waiting.
Me and Ward went out to Applebee's last night. We were there for 40 minutes. Okay, we got there at 8:30. We left. I was back in my car with it. Started at 9:10, and we sat down. And for 20 or 30 minutes, I was on my cell phone. He was on his cell phone, and we were trying to have a conversation. And the only time that we were
each other?
no,
While at the same table?
we were just checking Facebook, checking Twitter, stuff like that. And if I can't have a conversation with Jacob Ward for 40 minutes, I've known Jacob Ward since I was a freshman in college or in high school. If I can't have a conversation with him for 40 minutes, how am I going to have a conversation with anybody, any stranger on the street, for 10 minutes about something that is so taboo?
That's a good point. I think we have the hardest time putting down technology. I'm as guilty as the next person.
We're in the Candy Crush generation. We'd rather be playing a game than talking to somebody.
Well, the thing is, the only way we're going to have a personal relationship with God, we got to be still enough to listen and talk to Him. It's no different than the relationships we have with one another. What if God had texted? Would you send Him a text? Would you feel you had the same relationship with Him if you started doing it that way as you do today? It's just a total decay. And I've said it 100 times that we have more ability to communicate today than ever before in history, but we've lost that personal touch between one another. And we sit back and wonder why children in society don't have the same morals and values that some of us older people were raised with. We didn't have that. A telephone was a tool. You used it. You didn't call people and how you doing, what you doing. You used it to call people something you needed something. Whereas now it's just deteriorated the whole personal touch of communicating with one another. And like you said a while ago, the gates of hell are not going to ever prevail over the church. So what we got to constantly be aware of that the gates of hell are over there wide open.
Yeah.
They're just sitting there for people to enter. And I guess the true question is, what are we going to do different than what the rest of the world is doing? Because it's evident that that's not totally working. So, it's not about what's the church got to offer. The offering's already been paid. What He did, that's where the true joy and peace and all those things we long for in life come from. Not how many events or how many ball teams we have or how many Bible schools we have, vacation Bible school. It's about that, about His Word and sharing His Word. If we treated this, I remember somebody wrote a little Wednesday night discussion about what if we treated this the way we treated our cell phones. There was a lot of truth in that. The ones of you that read that. We gave the same amount of emphasis on this. If we walked out of the house, would we go back and get our Bible because we forgot it? No. We'd go back and get that phone. getting on my soapbox. I just struggle with it. I guess because I have a passion for people, not that way.
I think that reverse mentality that Will was talking about, that coming instead of going, they'll come to us instead of going. You look at Acts, I think not only was it working, they're adding thousands and things like that, it was working, but they saw it was working. And so that encouraged them to do it even more. Well, if you don't go out, if you just sit there and be passive about it, let it come to you, then you're going to say, well, it's not really working. I mean, how many times have you heard people in any church say basically, well, our church is shrinking, and they have 1,000 reasons why churches are getting smaller, and we're losing people, and there's only 30% of the Owensboro that actually goes to church on Sunday. But do they ever go out and be proactive and go and try to draw other people in? I mean, we just kind of sit there and like Will was saying, and kind of wait. It's the fort mentality. Mm-hmm. They'll come and play in our fort, not go out and invite somebody to come in. And you lose the passion for it because you don't see the benefit, you don't see the reward, because it doesn't work. Sitting there doesn't work. Going out works.
It's basically the mentality of reducing church to a building, or actually going and being the church. And what we've done is we've tried to create these monuments of buildings, thinking, man, if we just make it like this, people are going to show up.
Hansel and Gretel, right?
Yeah.
Got a house of candy.
Yeah, people are just going to show up.
That is true. You have a house of candy, kids are going to show up.
Yeah.
I was in Elizabethtown last weekend. Parker had an all-star football game tournament. We were driving down the road, and the sign said hospital ahead, a little H with the arrow, whatever. And then it kind of went up a hill, and then you see this enormous building with this lighted sign, and there was a building on the other side. It was a lot smaller or whatever. So we got up to the hill, and that enormous building that I thought was a hospital was actually a brand new Baptist church, and the tiny little building on the left was the hospital. I mean, the parking lot was at least 3 times as big as the hospital. I mean, this church was enormous. It had a lighted sign. And, just cute. You probably had 2 gyms in it. It looked like a high school. That's how big it was. And then there's this hospital, tiny little hospitals over there. You're right. Build it big and lighted signs, and everybody's going to want to come to this place.
You're going to attract some people. You're going to attract some people with that.
You're going to have a giant empty building after a while.
But after a while, I mean, if the spirit's not there, it's going to be a giant empty building.
Do you know how you attract people, though? I mean, it's the same thing Jesus did. Jesus attracted people because he was with people. Right. That's attractive. Right. And Jacob Hunt brings up a great point. When we're with people, are we with people? Or are we on our phone? Or, I mean, that's something that I've been really to no avail of right now. But I'm really trying to work on it. Is I need to stay off my phone when I'm around my kids. I need to stay off my phone when I'm around church or anything else, because you know what? It doesn't matter. The things that I'm doing on my phone, minus maybe communicating with somebody on a phone call about a meeting or anything else, are really just time wasters and just sitting back. I mean, social media is a time waster. It is. And we can still promote things, social media, but to sit on it constantly all the time is a time waster. And we're losing that personal connection. And when we lose that personal connection, that becomes unattractive. It becomes unattractive. And I think the church has lost a personal connection by the come to me, I'm not going to you mentality. You know what? That is unattractive to people. I don't want to show up with nobody that I know. I would rather show up because you've been in my life and invited me and been a part of who I am and helped me through the struggle, blah, 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 blah.
You think about who's the most important customer. Who's the most important customer? If you were over there
me?
In that county, who's the most important customer? The one standing in front of you, right?
Yep.
It goes back to what I was saying a while ago. If we're sitting here across the table from each other, and I'm over here doing this, what would you be feeling if you didn't have one?
Jealous.
I'm feeling rejected. I'm rejecting you, and I'm choosing someone else over you when ultimately you should be my number one concern. You're the person right in front of me. Why can you not demand my attention? That's what's a shame. That's a shame.
It's just like when we got Keisha her iPhone back for her anniversary, she said she wasn't going to become one of these iPhone people. And within weeks, we're driving down the road, usually talking to each other. She's sitting over there on her phone, and I'm thinking, okay, where's the conversation? And
Talk about
now that she
going
doesn't
back
have
to a
it
flip
because
phone.
it's broke, communication is already established. And Emily's not, I want the phone. It's communication back. And you don't realize, I mean, she understood from the beginning how addictive it was, just like donuts. You don't sit there and eat all 12. You do. And you feel bad. I mean, you have to use it as a tool, but it's not no life stuff.
I mean, you know it's bad when your 1-year-old picks up every toy, puts it to his ear, and goes, hello? I mean, you know that's bad. Because my kid does that all the time. It doesn't even matter what he's holding as a phone. He'll put it to his ear and go, hello? And I mean, that just tells you how much he sees us on our phones.
By 3, they're playing over here.
Yeah.
They know how to.
By 2, Emily played with it when she's 2. She
Yeah.
goes to the TV and doesn't understand why it's not moving.
Well, we're running out of time, so I'll close the podcast. But I think the practical application for this week is to be more intentional with personal communication. And not personal communication through a text, not personal communication through a phone call or an email. Personal face-to-face communication with urgency, as in not a means to an end, that you're only just concerned about their salvation and not them as a person, but you're genuinely concerned about them and their salvation. And you want to walk with them, and you want to get to know them, and you want to learn and to grow to love them. And I think I think that could be one of the hardest practical applications for the generation of Americans today. Is to step back and to back up from electronics and to say, you know what, I want to be personally involved with you. I want to, I care enough about our relationship to actually speak to you and to look you in the eye. How many people look people in the eyes? And I think that'd be a huge challenge to us and as we move forward. This is Coffee Talk.